Hi everyone, this is Lowell, and this is my final favorite musician video, and I wanted to talk about the British composer Thomas Adès. I think I'm saying his name right. It may not be. I've only seen it in print, but I really appreciate his work. What has happened since really the early 1900s, the early part of the 20th century till now, the last 100 years, uh, classical music, Western art music has seen a tremendous amount of um, volatility and experimentation, and it's really been difficult for composers to find a way forward. There's been a lot of experimentation, but not a lot of I guess, synthesis of that experimentation. We've seen really starting from Schoenberg, that kind of rocked everybody's world with serialism, and then that became standardized, but in my opinion, was not terribly successful as a musical compositional tool or art form in itself. Not that the ideas were good and sound, but because they were basically embedded in equal temperament, they lost a sense of tonality, which music and in nature is tonal. The overtone series is all around us, and so to totally walk away from tonality, which serialism did by rooting itself in equal temperament, um, it lost its appeal. It just lost its appeal, and so uh, contemporary audiences, even though they weren't schooled in serialism, they were told you must like serialism, but the audience pretty much just rejected serialism, even though forefront great composers were using it as a technique. Audiences were going, well, I don't know, that just doesn't sound right to me. So I know there's a lot of composers out there that are going to get mad at what I just said, but in essence, in my view, serialism failed. Not because the ideas were not good, but because it was rooted in equal temperament. Now, there's a way of using serialism in the overtone series that actually will cause a sense of harmonic congruity. Anyway, that's a rabbit trail. But so serialism with Arnold Schoenberg and his disciples Berg, Webern, um, uh, all of their work, uh, basically culminating up into or past their work, going into spectralism and experimenting with synthesizers, like Stockhausen did, and then uh, a sense of trying to um, unify rhythm and pitch at the same time. There were a lot of composers in the 20th century that were trying to unify these elements. Anyway, there was a lot of experimentation all the way through the 20th century, and uh, nobody really was able to merge or to coalesce anything that actually sounded good. Or very few people actually were able to express a real sense of musical communication. And so, what I really appreciate about Thomas Adès is his ability to synthesize all these different techniques that we learned from the 20th century. And he has a very deep classical background, understanding historically background, an appreciation for the great um, Baroque, classical, romantic composers. And so it was his understanding of history, but also his appreciation of synthesizing a lot of the experimentation that has come about in the 20th century into a way forward that is expressive. And it's not just basically slamming these different techniques together and trying to pretend that they go together, but he actually has internalized and synthesized a truly organic sense, where he has embraced certain elements that have been learned through the 20th century into his music. And I wouldn't call him extremely avant-garde or experimental, but he's found a way to actually have an artistic voice, a musical voice that is meaningful and that actually conveys emotion and conveys essentially classical music's direction from a historical standpoint into where we are now. And some of his famous works are for orchestra: Polaris, and then his opera The Tempest. They're well written and accessible to a modern audience. And so he was born in 1971, and so he's contemporary. He's still living. But of all of the various composers that I've listened to and studied that are contemporary, to me, he has the most. His music just hits me right. I really appreciate what he does. All of us have our own artistic bent and our own artistic flair, but to me, to my ear, I appreciate what Thomas Adès has created and his artistic direction, and the way that he's been able to synthesize all the various elements that have happened through the 20th century, and also feel connected to centuries before. So good job, Thomas Adès.